It's March 2025. A priest in Kyoto wakes up to his phone burning with notifications. His shrine, a place of worship that has stood for centuries, has just posted a new profile picture on X. A young woman in a red shrine maiden's robe, beautiful, serene, and AI-generated. Within hours, the messages start arriving. Your shrine will burn. I will come for you. By the end of that week, a 38-year-old man had been arrested, and the AI artist who made the image, he started receiving demands. Pay 3 million yen or die. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a single AI-generated image could ignite this level of rage, and why it taps into something far older and far darker than any algorithm. But to understand what really happened in Kyoto, we need to go back, not just to the shrine, to the ghosts Japan has been summoning for 1,000 years. This isn't a story about one shrine, or one arrest, or one unhinged man with a burner phone. This is a story about what happens when a technology that the West sees as a tool collides with a culture that has always seen the world as haunted. Japan has a word, onryō, a vengeful spirit born not from death alone, but from grudge, from feelings so powerful, so unresolved, that the dead refuse to leave. Historically, onryō were the women wronged by powerful men, burned at the edges of history. Their rage outlasted their bodies. Now, in 2025, something new has appeared in Japan's digital spaces. Ghostly figures emerging from AI prompts. Images that were never meant to exist. Faces that no human has ever worn. And according to thousands of comments on 2-channel and 5-channel, Japan's most influential internet forums, these images carry something people can't quite name. One user wrote, "If you make an onryō with generative AI, you'll actually get cursed." They half meant it as a joke. Half. So why is Japan the one country on Earth where this joke lands with genuine unease? The answer reaches back much further than the internet, much further than AI. It reaches back to the beginning of Japan's relationship with the dead. To understand why Japan reacted the way it did, you need to understand a concept that runs through the entire culture like a nerve. Mono no aware. The pathos of things. the idea that everything that exists is temporary, and that this impermanence is not just sad, it's sacred. In this worldview, objects don't just sit there. They accumulate meaning. They accumulate feeling. And when something is thrown away, forgotten, or treated carelessly, its accumulated spirit can turn. The Japanese call them tsukumogami, tools and objects that become spirits after 100 years of existence. Sound abstract. Let me make it concrete. In the Heian period, around the year 900, Japan's aristocracy lived in constant terror of grudge spirits. Emperor Sutoku, exiled and humiliated, died cursing the imperial family. Legends say his spirit became so powerful it caused natural disasters. His shrine was built not to honor him, but to contain him. This is the architecture of Japanese supernatural belief. You cannot destroy a spirit with enough grudge. You can only manage it, house it, appease it. And here's what most Western observers completely miss. That architecture is still operating, right now, in 2025. Because when Japanese internet users look at an AI-generated face, a face that no human has ever worn, they're not just seeing a technological curiosity. They're seeing something that exists without having been born. And in a culture that believes existence creates spiritual weight, that's not neutral. That's a category violation. The AI boom of the 2020s arrived in Japan carrying a specific kind of dread. Not the Western fear that AI would take jobs, concentrate power, undermine copyright. Those fears exist in Japan too, but underneath them sits something older. Japanese note essays began comparing AI hallucinations to kappa myths, those strange water creatures of Japanese folklore, unpredictable, sometimes helpful, sometimes fatal. The comparison wasn't random. Both the kappa and the AI exist just outside the boundary of what can be fully understood or controlled. And here's where the history becomes genuinely disturbing. Everything I've just told you suggests that Japan would be more cautious with AI-generated images of sacred things, more restrained. Except it's not. In fact, Japan went further than almost any country on Earth. And what happened next is something nobody expected. Let me tell you about Loab. In 2022, a Swedish artist named Supercomposite was testing something called negative prompt weight, a technique that tells an AI what not to produce. She typed in the opposite of a corporate logo, and what came back was a face, a woman, middle-aged, hollow-eyed, bruised-looking, appearing in every image, in every prompt variation, uninvited. Loab spread across the internet. She turned up in horror compositions no one intentionally made. She appeared in images thousands of people generated without knowing she existed. And for a specific corner of Japanese internet, she became something else entirely. She became evidence. One 2-channel user wrote, "AI spirit photos are annoying. Monsters like Loab start appearing. Not as mockery, as warning." This is where the Japan story diverges from the Western one completely. In the West, Loab was a curiosity, a weird glitch, a fun internet mystery. In Japan, she was immediately reframed through a cultural lens 2,000 years old. An entity that appears without being summoned, that refuses to leave, that shows up in places it has no business being, has a name in Japan. It's called an onryō. Now here's what strikes me most about this. The Japanese reaction to AI-generated cursed images isn't irrational. It's actually the logical output of an entirely coherent belief system. One that says presence implies intention. Creation implies responsibility. If you make something that looks human, you have made an obligation. And if you abandon it, if you treat it as disposable, you have created a grudge. The AI artist who posted that Miko image at Kurumazaki Shrine wasn't trying to desecrate anything. The shrine staff who uploaded it had no malicious intent. But in the logic of grudge, intention doesn't matter. Carelessness is enough. And Japan's legal system is now catching up to this in ways that have no parallel in the West. In 2024, Japanese courts referred the first case of AI-generated image copyright to Chiba, treating human-prompted AI art as potentially protected intellectual property. That same year, 2 people were arrested for selling AI-generated obscene Evangelion posters, netting over 10 million yen before police intervened. But the Kuramatsuki case is different. There, no copyright was violated, no obscenity law broken. The image was simply wrong in a spiritual sense that Japanese law doesn't yet have a category for. Put yourself in the position of someone who grew up believing that a shrine is not a building, it is a container. That the space inside the torii gate is literally a different kind of space. And then someone puts an AI face on that container. A face no human has ever worn. a face born from millions of stolen images, hallucinated by a machine. In that worldview, what has been summoned? And that's when things got truly disturbing. Because once we look at how ordinary Japanese people are actually talking about this, the public debate is nothing like what Western media is reporting. I want to show you what Japanese people themselves are saying about this, because it's not what you'd expect. On 5chan, Japan's most active forum, the digital onryō debate fractures in 3 directions, and none of them are simply pro-AI or anti-AI. The first voice, anger at cultural disrespect. Anger. Shrine got death threats for AI Miko image. Don't ignore culture. They're not defending the threats. They're pointing at something underneath them. That there are spaces in Japan that cannot be treated as content. The second voice is ironic detachment and genuine unease underneath it. Digital anomalies are the new urban legends. Let's spread it on 5channel. Read that carefully. They're laughing, and they're also doing it. Creating the legend in the act of mocking it. This is how Japan's internet culture metabolizes horror, not by rejecting it, but by ritualizing it. The third voice, pragmatic outrage. AI horror is fun, but copyright violations are unforgivable. Note the split. The supernatural framing is fine. The legal framing is where the line is. Japan's public is not afraid of AI ghosts. They're afraid of AI theft. And honestly, reading through hundreds of these comments, what strikes me is the exhaustion underneath the irony. A country that has spent 3 decades in economic stagnation, watching its cultural products get harvested by global platforms, watching its sacred spaces become tourist content, and now watching its AI tools generate faces that wear Shinto robes without understanding what those robes mean. Kyofu, fear. Is this digital onryō? Scary. Hope it doesn't happen in real life. It already did. So, why does this keep happening? Why does Japan, of all places, keep being the country where the friction between AI and culture produces the most extreme results? The answer lies in something much darker than internet culture. It lies in the structure of the Japanese psyche itself. Now here's the part that most documentaries about Japan completely ignore, and it changes everything. Japan's relationship with the image is fundamentally different from the West's. In Shinto animism, the visual representation of a deity, the Shintai, is not a symbol of the god. It is the god in a specific and literal sense. The image doesn't point toward the sacred. The image holds
When
it.
an AI generates a face for a shrine maiden, it's not generating a picture. In the logic of Shinto, it's attempting to generate a container for something sacred. And it doesn't know what it's doing. It has no grudge, no intention, no soul. And in Japan's metaphysical framework, that vacancy is exactly what makes it dangerous.
This is where Western analysis of Japan often gets it wrong. Western critics of AI focus on what AI produces. Japanese critics focus on what AI is, a tool without a soul that can accidentally create a container for something that needs one. Japan has some of the weakest AI governance frameworks among developed nations, not because it doesn't care, but because it has historically treated regulation as a secondary response. Japan moves fast, then manages the aftermath. The AI copyright case in Chiba was landmark not because of the ruling, but because it revealed there was no existing framework to rule within. Japan's legal infrastructure is improvising. Meanwhile, the NPA, Japan's national police agency, has no dedicated category for AI-generated spiritual desecration. When the Kurumazaki threats came in, they were processed under standard harassment law. The spiritual dimension, the actual fuel of the offense, was invisible to the system. Japan's post-bubble generation, the people posting on 5-channel right now, grew up in a country that promised prosperity and delivered stagnation. That experience doesn't just create cynicism, it creates a specific psychological state. Learned helplessness toward institutions, combined with intense investment in cultural identity as the one remaining constant. When something violates that cultural identity, a shrine, a sacred costume, a centuries-old visual grammar, it doesn't land as a copyright dispute. It lands as a personal attack, an existential one. So, what happens now? Is Japan heading toward stricter AI governance? Or is it heading toward something else entirely? A cultural integration of AI into its own ghost story tradition? The answer, it turns out, is both at the same time. And that might be the most Japanese thing imaginable. In the spring of 2025, the same season the Kurumazaki threats were being processed by police, something else happened in Japan. A temple in Kyoto announced a ghost story contest. Kaidan, traditional Japanese horror tales, to be written with AI assistance. Entries poured in. The event was packed. Japan didn't choose between the ghost and the algorithm. It invited the algorithm into the ghost story. This is what I keep coming back to. The West tends to treat AI as something that will either solve our problems or become one. Japan, older in its relationship with forces it cannot control, seems to be doing something different. It's domesticating the anomaly, giving it a place in the folklore, making it a character in a story that already knows how to hold dangerous things. The onryō tradition was never about eliminating the vengeful spirit. It was about finding where to put it so it stops burning things down. But here's what remains unresolved, and it matters. The AI artist who made the Kuromasaki Miko is still receiving threats. The legal frameworks are improvising. improvising. The 5chan threads are still running. And somewhere in Japan right now, someone is generating an image in a prompt that they don't fully understand, for reasons they can't quite articulate, and in a tradition that says creation implies responsibility. That matters. So here's what I want to ask you. Not, are you pro-AI or anti-AI? Not, do you believe in curses? But this. When you generate an image, or a voice, or a face, or a name, do you think about what you've made? Do you think about what it might mean to someone who didn't ask for it to exist? Japan has been asking that question for 1,000 years. It doesn't have a good answer yet. Neither do we. If something in this video made you think, drop it in the comments. Tell me the moment it landed. I read every single one. And if you want to go deeper, the next video in this series goes somewhere even darker.